topic that's kind of a little crazy. And the last page in this lesson will kind of give you an idea of how housing can be a little bit crazy. So this first lesson, and then I'll go to the last page. We're going to talk about some terms related to purchasing a house, but what we're really going to focus on is two things, okay? If you're looking at a house and it costs a certain amount, can you afford it? Or, given your income, how much can you afford to pay for a house? So this little thing here, I found this. How much you need to earn. This is last year. How much you need to earn to buy a home in Canada. And it lists different cities.
Is that like updated?
What's that?
Is that like updated?
It'll probably be about the same. There won't be much change.
Man, I'm so confused. What
Okay.
is the house?
So let's look at one thing. So in March 2022, the average home price was $367,000. Last year in March, it was less, 336. So it went down a little bit. Okay. This tells you these two columns here. Well, this one, let's look at March 2023. This tells you how much you need to earn in order to afford a house in Winnipeg. So in March 2023, average home price was $336. You needed to earn at least $75,000 a year. Okay, that's your gross income. Gross income is the money that you pay before they tax you. Okay, so not too bad in Winnipeg, but look at Vancouver at the top. Last year, March 2023, average house value went down a little bit from 2022 to 1.1 million. Okay, and how much you need to earn? 221,000 a year. That's a pretty substantial wage. Okay, not a large percentage of people in Canada will be making this amount. And then you can see how in some other places, the average cost of a home, as well as your yearly income in order to afford a home. Edmonton is usually a pretty decent market because it's pretty affordable. And, you know, you're not too far from the Rocky Mountains, and you know, it's a good alternative. You can see some places like out on the East Coast, Halifax is a little bit higher than that. Obviously, Toronto, Vancouver, those are pretty crazy markets. Montreal is too bad. Okay, but you can see basically what this is telling you is that, I mean, it's hard to buy a house nowadays. Okay. It used to be much easier, but because of the rising prices of houses and income is sort of not rising at the same rate, okay, it's becoming harder to afford a home, or you're going to have to spend a lot more time paying off your home. I think in December this year, because when you buy a house, I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit. When you buy a house, the maximum time you can take to pay back is 25 years. Okay, they're now increasing that to 30 years. So you can take a 30-year loan on your house, but you're going to have to be paying back a monthly amount. And we'll talk about that. You're going to have to be paying back a monthly amount for 30 years. Okay, that's a long time. I mean, people, you know, generation ago, when people retired, their houses were paid for. Nowadays, when people retire, they're still paying for their house. You know, so it's making things more difficult, obviously. So that just sort of gives you a general trend as to what's going on. Okay. When you take a loan for a house, it's called a mortgage. That's the name of it. Okay. So when you talk about paying off a mortgage, you're talking about a loan for a house, not a loan for anything else, just a house. Okay. And there is a certain value called the gross debt service ratio, GDSR. Helps you determine whether you can afford a house or how much you can afford to pay for a house. So what you do, and this is the formula here, to calculate whether you can afford to pay for a house or how much you can afford. To calculate this GDSR, you have to take your, and these are all monthly on top. So you have to take your monthly mortgage payments. When you buy a home, you're going to have to pay taxes. That's where the city that you live in gets their money to do things like roads and sewers and things like that, and offer garbage pickup and things like that. So you have to add your monthly property taxes. And your monthly heating costs. Because those are sort of the essentials that you're always going to have to pay when you have a home. Now, you're going to have to pay other things too for a home that we'll talk about, but these are kind of the essentials. Yeah.
If they use the money to fix the roads, why are the roads so bad?
And that's an issue with the city of Winnipeg right now, is because they're in debt. They want to increase property taxes so that they can spend more on roads. But how much increase in property taxes can people afford? So it's always an issue. And then we divide that by a person's monthly gross income. That's going to give us a decimal. We want to change it to a percent. So once we have that value, we're going to times by 100 to change it to percent. Now, with the grade 12 course, you guys write a provincial exam, but part of the provincial exam is that you are allowed a one-page double-sided reference sheet for the exam. Okay. So I'm going to be sort of making suggestions as we go as to some things that you should think about putting on a reference sheet. But we'll talk more about that when we start to review for the provincial exam itself, because you actually get a formula sheet too. And a lot of these formulas that we're going to do, you're given. So you don't need to put them on a reference sheet because you already got them. You can save your reference sheet for other things. Yeah. Yes. Yes. But I mean, any kind of testing you do, reference sheet as well. Okay. So once you calculate this, the rule is it should not be higher than 32%. If it's higher than 32%, in general, you can't afford the house you're looking at. You won't have enough to sort of live while owning this house. Okay. One comment on the monthly gross income. Like I said, gross income is what you get before any deductions are made. So I have a certain monthly gross income here, but I get taxes deducted. Part of my gross income is used to put into my pension. Part of it is to pay for the government pension plan. Part of it is to pay for unemployment insurance. Part of it is to pay for parking here at the school. Part of it is for disability insurance if I get injured or something and I can't work. So all of these things are taken off my gross income. And the actual cash I get, the check that I get, or the amount that's put into my account, that's net income. Okay. So let's look at an example. So the Menzies family is considering buying a two-story house for the purchase price of $210,000. That's very cheap. I mean, I bought a two-story house for about $210,000 in 2007, 17 years ago. So I should probably change this side. The family can make a down payment of $25,000. The family's gross monthly income is $4,236. The monthly mortgage payment is $925. The annual property taxes are $2,500, and the annual heating costs are $1,500. We want to calculate the GDSR. Okay. So everything has to be in terms of months. So some of it we are given, some of it we have to calculate. So the monthly mortgage we're given, it's $925. Property taxes, we're not given per month. We're given per year. How would you calculate the month per month? Yeah, take the 2,500 and divide it by 12. And that will work out to, when you express it to two decimal places, because that's what money should always be expressed to and rounded properly, $208.33. The heating is also expressed annually, so we have to convert it. So we have to take the annual heating costs and divide it by 12. And we get 125. Monthly gross income, we're given it. It's $42.36. So we need those four pieces of information to calculate the GDSR. So the GDSR is going to be the mortgage payment, $925, plus the property taxes per month, $208.33, plus the heating costs per month, $125, divided by their monthly gross income, which is $42.36. That will give us a decimal, so we're going to times it by 100 to convert it to percent. So we simply add these up, divide it by 42.36, times it by 100, and we get approximately 29.7%. So can they afford it? Yep. It's a little close, but they can afford it. Okay, that's not too bad. I would suspect a lot of people's GDSR is above 32% right now, even with all the info. And that's kind of both happening in the States and in Canada. Okay, so that's calculated. Notice the down payment, okay, we didn't factor it in to the calculation, okay? But that would make the home a little bit less, wouldn't it? So with that, if they're able to make a $25,000 down payment, that's taking the home down to what? 185,000? No, sorry. Yeah, 185,000, which would probably be even better for them. Okay, but we're assuming though that they made the down payment and whatever was left, they calculated their mortgage as this. Okay, what about if we want to go backwards? How much can we afford, given our income, given how much we're going to have to pay in property taxes, heating costs, and mortgage? So really what you're doing is you're using a table and you're following this. And it's kind of self-explanatory. Okay. But what we're doing is we're doing calculations in reverse to figure out the cost of a home. Okay. So let's look at an example. Newly married couple wishes to purchase a condo. Okay. I mean, you take a mortgage on a condo as well as the house. The couple has a gross monthly income of $3,750, and they're able to make a $15,000 down payment. Okay. The monthly mortgage the financial institution offers them is with an interest rate of 4.5%. They estimate the monthly property taxes are going to be about 165. Monthly heating costs are going to be about 7. And when you buy a condo, in order to upkeep the condo, like do the grounds and things like that, and all the sheltering in the winter and things like that, you have to pay condo fees. You don't have to pay that when you buy a house. Okay. So we want to calculate the maximum they can afford for a condo. So really, let's just look at how we do this. So the gross monthly income, we've got it, is $3,750. We want to multiply by the GDSR. Well, what was the guideline? How much? 32%, but as a decimal. Okay. So 0.32. So it's going to be 32%, always 32%, but as a decimal, we're going to put 0.32. Okay. So when we multiply 3750 by 0.32, because we're basically saying that 0.32 of their household income should be for heating, mortgage, property taxes. So when we calculate that, we get $1,200. Exactly. Now, we have to subtract away some of their monthly fees. So the monthly property taxes, we have to subtract 165. We then have to also subtract 70. And also their condo fees, but only half. Okay. I won't really get into the explanation of that. It's just because some of the condo fees are for, what was it? How do I phrase it? Things that you don't really, that are beyond your control, that you don't really have to worry about, that the condo organization is going to take care of. Okay. So 1,200, subtract these three amounts. So subtract, subtract, subtract. And this is times, I'll just throw it there. And we get their mortgage payment, right? Because we took away the property taxes If they bought a house, there wouldn't be the condo fees. Okay, so this is how much they can afford for a mortgage payment. Not bad. Okay, now we have to divide by the interest factor, and that's on the previous page, the table. Notice their interest rate. Their interest rate was 4.5%, right? So at 4.5%, we have to divide this amount. So in order to complete this, what you can afford, you're always going to have this table with you. You don't have to remember these. So it was 0.00553, and we're going to divide that and we get $147,377.94. But remember, they also have cash for a down payment. They can afford to make a $15,000 down payment. So we add that. Which means the condo that they can afford is a little over $162,000. That's not a huge amount. Okay. I mean, if you're looking at a halfway decent condo, I think you're looking at least 250, at least. Okay, if not more. So this, it could be, they may have to think about, you know, like, okay, we're going to have to come up with some sort of alternate plan and perhaps save some more money. And then maybe in the future, we can look at a condo. Okay. So those are the two big things out of this. Using the GDSR to see if you can afford a certain amount, or to see if you can afford a home at a certain amount, or using the fees that you pay in your gross monthly income and your interest rate to figure out how much you can afford. Okay, so those are the two big things that come out of this. Okay.